In this activity, in your activity guide, making a change, we're going to go and open up the desk organizer. We're going to modify that. So in File, we're going to go Open and navigate to your student folder. Go to your period and then CNC Mill and open up the desk organizer file. As you can see, we have our original file. We're going to modify that so that the new file, the new part, has two pen holders removed, these two. This hexagonal container will be moved and resized. There'll be a slot added for business cards, and an elliptical container will be added. So on your software here, we're going to save this file right now. File, Save As, and navigate to your student folder. Go to your period, and then save this as your last name with the activity number at the end. So once you save this, then we'll continue editing this part. So we'll need to get rid of these pen holders. So we're going to select them and press delete on the keyboard. And as we're working, if we're following along and looking at the pictures in the activity guide, if what we're doing is similar to what is being shown, then we can save after each step. So we want to save this after we delete those two circles. So the next step is we're going to go to the hexagon shape and we're going to modify that. So we need to change the size and the location. So we're going to double click that. It's going to come up with the geometry properties box. That box will allow us to go in and change the size of the shape. So the top of the shape, the bottom of the shape, and then where it's located. So in your binder, it's going to tell you what the value should be in each of these boxes. And there's a small graphic that shows you what those shapes should be. So here on your binder, it says that the top dimension should be 2.5 and the Y should be 1.25. This should be 2.5, and then this one should be 1.25, and the Z coordinate, which is how deep it's going to cut. The cutting tool is going to go down into the material. That should be 0.375. So it's going to be a little different than what's in your binder because our material is going to be a little thinner than what it's asking for. And so what we need to do here in the position is we need to change that to 0.25, and 0.25. And then this should remain 0. So we told the computer to slide this part over so that the leftmost part of this object is 0.25 inches away from the origin, and the origin is the starting place where your cutting tool is going to go, and then 0.25 inches up from the origin, which is where this bottom line is. Okay, so the next thing we'll need to do is we'll need to change the size. So we're going to change the top delta x. Delta is the triangle. So top, right here, top, and then delta x should be 3. And then for the top delta y should be 1. Then our bottom dimensions, delta x should be 3, and delta y should be 1. And so this was step number 12 in your binder. So we'll click the check mark and it elongates that shape. So once we have done that, then we can save this. Now number 14, we need our rulers up, so we have our rulers. So we click this button here to show our yellow rulers, and we're going to make sure that we have the snap to grid button selected so that when we make shapes they snap to each of these points on the grid. We're going to make a rectangle next, so we're going to pick the rectangle geometry, and we're going to draw a rectangle that is a given size. So the easiest way to do this is to start at 0.25 and 0.75. So right here, draw a rectangle going across. Doesn't matter the size when you draw it, because we're going to go in and double click and modify that shape based on what's set in number 18 in your activity guide. So the dimensions section, we'll want to make sure that our shape, the delta Z, we'll make sure that is 0.375, which is different than what's in your binder. It would normally say 0.5, but we're using slightly thinner materials, so we'll need to modify so it doesn't cut all the way through. The next step is in the cut properties section. That's right up here. We're going to change that to make sure that says pocket. If not, we need to change that. In the tool section, we'll want to make sure that it says tool 1. In the binder it says tool 9, but we're going to use tool 1, which is the one that I keep in the machine. So moving on. Once we have that selected, then we'll click the check mark, and then we have our rectangle. So our rectangle should go from 0.25 inches all the way to 3.5 inches, and it should be at 0.75 inches right here, down a quarter of an inch down to 1.5 inches. So once you have your rectangle, then we'll save this guy, and we'll make sure that we're saving so we don't lose our work. Then we'll need to add a oval to our part. So here in the top, we're going to add elliptical geometry, and we're going to draw a oval on the bottom right corner. We're going to double click that, and we're going to change some of the geometry options here. In the geometry options, we're going to select the delta Z. We're going to make sure that is 0.375, and then we'll need to make sure we select pocket in the cut types, and then we'll need to make sure that tool 1 is selected on our tool list. And once we have finished, we'll need to make sure that this oval, we can just click on that black handle and we can move that up so the bottom of the oval is even with the hexagon. Again, same thing with the top of the oval. We can move that, make sure it's even with the top of this hexagon. And then we'll want to make sure that there is one block of space in between the hexagon and the oval. So once we have that set, then we'll be able to move on. Okay. So once we have that, then we'll need to save our work, and then we'll need to export to GM file. And you'll navigate to your student folder, and you'll need to go to your period, CNC mill, and then you'll need to save this with your last name with the lesson that this goes with. Once we have saved this, then we'll need to set it up, and we'll need to run the mill program and cut out the part.